The black void of space stretched endlessly in all directions, dotted with distant stars that had witnessed countless civilizations rise and fall. Commander Vexthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Talon, watching the stars pass by on the main view screen. His scaled skin gleamed under the soft blue lighting of the command center, and his yellow eyes scanned the reports coming in from his patrol fleet. The Zaltharian Empire had ruled this sector of space for 3 generations. Vexthor had served in the military for 20 cycles, and in all that time he had never encountered a species that could stand against their might. The pattern was always the same. They would find a new civilization, scan their vessels, and within hours the aliens would surrender. Most species knew better than to fight once they saw the technological advantage the Zaltharians possessed. Today seemed like it would be no different. His sensor officer, a younger Zaltharian named Krell, had detected an unknown vessel entering their territory. It was a large ship, clearly meant for long-range travel, but it bore no markings that matched any known civilization in their database. "Commander, the vessel is maintaining a steady course through the outer rim," Krell reported, his clawed fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "They do not appear to be aware of our presence." Vexthor nodded slowly. "Standard procedure. Move to intercept and prepare for intimidation scan. Let us see what these newcomers are made of." The Zaltharian fleet changed course, their sleek warships cutting through space with practiced precision. Within minutes they had positioned themselves in a tactical formation around the unknown vessel, weapons charged but not yet armed. This was the dance Vexthor had performed hundreds of times before. Far across the void, Captain Daniel Hayes sat in the command chair of the USS Sentinel, reviewing navigation charts with his science officer. Daniel was a tall man in his early 40s with short brown hair starting to show gray at the temples. He had served in Earth's military for 20 years before transitioning to deep space exploration. His face carried the weathered look of someone who had seen both combat and wonder among the stars. "Captain, we're getting some interesting mineral readings from the 3rd planet in this system," Dr. Lisa Grant said, adjusting her glasses as she studied the data. Lisa was a brilliant scientist in her mid-30s, with long blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. The composition suggests rare Earth elements that could be valuable for colonization efforts. Before Daniel could respond, Lieutenant Amy Price looked up sharply from the tactical station. Amy was younger than most of the senior officers, barely 30, but she had earned her position through exceptional skill and quick thinking. Her dark hair was cut short in military regulation style, and her brown eyes were always alert. "Captain, we have multiple contacts appearing on sensors," Amy announced, her voice calm but urgent. 6 vessels, unknown configuration, moving to surround us." Daniel sat up straight, his training immediately taking over. "Red alert. Shields to maximum. Weapons on standby, but do not arm them. Let's not start a war on our first day in a new neighborhood." Chief Engineer Greg Morris contacted the bridge from engineering. Greg was a stocky man with red hair and a thick beard, known for his ability to keep the ship running even when everything seemed to be falling apart. "Captain, I'm reading some kind of scanning beam hitting our hull. It's pretty sophisticated, trying to analyze our entire ship structure." "Let them look," Daniel said, leaning forward in his chair. "Amy, any hostile intent?" "Negative, sir. They're in an attack formation, but weapons are not charged." "This feels like a show of force." Daniel nodded. "Typical territorial response. We probably wandered into someone's backyard." "Lisa, can you analyze their technology level from what we're seeing?" Lisa worked quickly at her station, comparing the alien vessels against Earth's database of theoretical technologies. Their ships use some kind of plasma-based propulsion system. Energy signatures suggest advanced shield technology, probably electromagnetic-based. They're definitely more advanced than most of the species we've encountered so far. On the bridge of the Crimson Talon, Krell completed the scanning sequence and began reviewing the data. At first, everything seemed normal. The ship was large, approximately 1 kilometer in length, with a cylindrical main hull and various protruding sections that likely housed different systems. But as the deeper scans came through, Krell's expression changed from professional interest to confusion. "Commander, I am receiving unusual readings," Krell said, his voice uncertain. "I believe there may be a calibration error with our sensors." Vexthor walked over to Krell's station, his tail swishing with mild irritation. "Run a full diagnostic. We cannot afford inaccurate data." Krell's claws moved frantically across the controls, running multiple checks on the scanning systems. Minutes passed in tense silence as the entire bridge crew waited for results. When the diagnostic completed, Krell turned to face his commander, and Vexthor could see genuine fear in the younger officer's eyes. "Commander, there is no error. The scans are accurate." Krell's voice trembled slightly. "The hull composition of this vessel is beyond anything in our database. The outer armor appears to be constructed from compressed neutronium alloys. The density readings suggest it could withstand direct hits from our entire fleet without significant damage." A murmur rippled through the bridge crew. Vexthor felt his scales tighten against his body, an involuntary response to stress that he had not experienced in years. "That is impossible. Neutronium cannot be shaped or compressed into stable forms. Our scientists have been trying for generations." "That is not all, Commander," Krell continued, pulling up more data on the main screen. "Their weapon systems show energy signatures that are off the scale. These cylindrical structures along the hull appear to be some form of kinetic accelerators, but the power readings suggest they can fire projectiles at near light speed. And these missile bays contain antimatter warheads. Each warhead has enough destructive power to destroy one of our capital ships." The bridge fell completely silent. Every Zaltharian officer stared at the image of the human warship displayed before them, seeing it now not as prey, but as a predator far beyond their ability to challenge. Vexthor had built his entire career on the certainty of Zaltharian superiority. In a single scan, that certainty had been shattered. "Power down all weapons immediately," Vexthor commanded, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "Raise shields to maximum and open all communication channels. Send a priority message to the High Command. We have encountered something new, something dangerous, and we need to know who these beings are before we accidentally start a war we cannot win." On the USS Sentinel, Amy Price watched her console with growing confusion. "Captain, the alien vessels are backing off. They've powered down weapons and raised shields. They're transmitting on multiple frequencies, but it looks like they're trying to communicate peacefully." Daniel exchanged glances with Lisa, who looked equally puzzled. "That's an odd reaction for a species that just surrounded us with warships. Greg, did something happen during their scan that might have scared them?" Greg's voice came back over the comm, sounding amused. "Well, sir, they did get a complete look at our weapon systems and armor specifications. Maybe they decided we weren't worth the trouble." Daniel considered this for a moment, then made his decision. "Amy, transmit standard first contact protocols. Let's see if we can turn this standoff into a conversation, and someone get me a translation algorithm working on their language. I want to know what they're so eager to tell us." The communication systems of both fleets worked frantically to establish a connection. On the Crimson Talon, the linguistics team deployed advanced translation software that could analyze alien languages and create functional communication within hours. The Zaltharians had perfected this technology over centuries of conquest and diplomacy, encountering dozens of species across the galaxy. Commander Vexthor paced the bridge while waiting for the translation matrix to complete. Every few seconds, his eyes darted to the main screen where the human warship hung in space like a sleeping giant. The more he thought about the scan results, the more questions filled his mind. How had this species developed such advanced military technology? Where had they come from? And most importantly, what did they want? "Commander, translation protocols are online," the communications officer announced. "We are receiving a response from the alien vessel." A moment later, a voice filled the bridge. It was male, speaking in measured tones that suggested military training and discipline. "This is Captain Daniel Hayes of the Earth vessel Sentinel. We are on a peaceful exploration mission and mean no harm. We were not aware we had entered claimed territory. Please state your intentions." Vexthor straightened his posture and activated his own communication channel. "Captain Hayes, I am Commander Vexthor of the Zaltharian Empire. Your vessel has entered our territorial space. However, we wish to discuss this matter diplomatically. Would you be willing to meet for formal negotiations?" There was a brief pause before Daniel's voice returned. "Commander, we're certainly willing to talk. Where and when do you propose this meeting?" Relief washed over Vexthor. At least these humans were reasonable. "There is a neutral trading station approximately 6 light hours from your current position. It serves as a hub for multiple species in this sector. Would this be acceptable?" On the USS Sentinel, Daniel looked at his senior officers. Lisa was already pulling up information about the station from their long-range sensors, while Amy checked for any potential tactical concerns. Greg's voice came through from engineering with his typical straightforward assessment. Captain, if they wanted to fight us, they would have tried already. They're clearly nervous about something. Might as well find out what. Daniel smiled slightly at Greg's blunt logic. Commander Vexthor, we accept your proposal. We'll meet you at the station in 12 hours. That should give both our crews time to prepare. Agreed, Captain Hayes. We will arrange for representatives from other local civilizations to attend as well. This is a significant moment for our region of space. Vexthor out. As the communication ended, Daniel turned to Amy. Other civilizations? How big did this meeting just become? Amy was already working on her tactical analysis. Sir, if they're inviting multiple species to meet us after one scan, we must have really impressed them, or terrified them. Lisa looked up from her science station, her expression thoughtful. Captain, I've been reviewing the scan they performed on us. It was thorough enough to analyze our hull composition, weapon systems, and power generation. They know exactly what we're capable of. And they decided to talk instead of fight, Daniel finished, which means either they're very wise or very cautious. Amy, take a security team and prepare for diplomatic contact. Greg, I want the ship ready to move at a moment's notice just in case this is some kind of trap. Lisa, compile everything we know about human military technology compared to theoretical alien capabilities. I want to understand what they saw when they scanned us. The next 12 hours passed quickly as both sides prepared for the meeting. The Zaltharian High Command had been notified of the encounter, and their response was immediate and clear. Do not antagonize these humans. Establish friendly relations. Learn everything possible about their technology and civilization. The scan results had been transmitted to every major power in the sector, and the reaction was universal shock. The trading station called Haven's Rest was a massive structure built into a hollowed-out asteroid. It had served as a neutral meeting ground for over a century, hosting diplomatic meetings, trade negotiations, and cultural exchanges between dozens of species. The station administrator, a four-armed creature named Quilks, had never seen so many urgent requests for docking clearance at the same time. When the USS Sentinel arrived at the station, Daniel brought Amy and Greg with him as his diplomatic team. They wore their standard Earth Defense Force uniforms, which seemed plain compared to the elaborate garments worn by many alien species. The docking bay was crowded with beings of all shapes and sizes, all of them staring at the human trio with expressions that ranged from curiosity to obvious fear. Commander Vexthor approached with 3 of his own officers, his scaled body moving with fluid grace. He stopped a respectful distance from the humans and performed what appeared to be a formal bow. Captain Hayes, welcome to Haven's Rest. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Daniel extended his hand in the traditional human greeting. Vexthor looked at the hand for a moment before carefully grasping it, mimicking the gesture. Commander, I hope we can clear up any misunderstandings and establish friendly relations between our peoples. As do I, Captain, Vexthor said, releasing the handshake. Please follow me to the conference chamber. There are many who wish to meet you. The conference room was large enough to accommodate representatives from 8 different species, each sitting at specially designed stations that suited their unique physiologies. Daniel noticed that all eyes followed him as he entered, and the ambient noise of conversation stopped abruptly. He had attended many high-stakes meetings during his military career, but never one where he felt quite so much like a specimen under examination. Vexthor took his place at the head of the table and gestured for Daniel to sit opposite him. Captain Hayes, allow me to introduce our assembled delegates. To my left is Ambassador Trin of the Nexian Collective, our primary trade partners in this region. A creature that resembled a floating jellyfish with crystalline structures throughout its transparent body pulsed with soft light. A mechanical voice translated its bioluminescent patterns into words. Captain Hayes, humanity is most welcome. We are eager to establish commerce. The introductions continued around the table. There was High Priestess Yuna of the Crystalline Chorus, whose species appeared to be made entirely of living crystal. Commander Zack of the Rothian Defense League, a bear-like creature covered in thick fur. Minister Pravix of the Centauri Coalition, who looked remarkably similar to humans except for his silver skin and completely black eyes. Each representative greeted Daniel with varying degrees of enthusiasm and nervousness. When the introductions were complete, Vexthor addressed the assembly. We have called this meeting because Captain Hayes and his crew represent a species previously unknown to our sector. During our initial encounter, we performed a standard scanning protocol of their vessel. The results were extraordinary. Minister Pravix leaned forward, his dark eyes focusing intently on Daniel. Captain, please forgive our directness, but we must ask. The Zaltharian scans indicate your ship possesses weapons technology far beyond anything currently known in this region of space. Is this assessment accurate? Daniel felt Greg shift uncomfortably beside him, but Amy remained perfectly still, her face neutral. I'm not sure I understand the concern, Daniel said carefully. The Sentinel is equipped with standard Earth Defense Force armaments. We have railguns for kinetic strikes, missile systems for long-range engagement, and defensive armor designed to protect the crew. This is normal for our exploration vessels. A stunned silence filled the room. Ambassador Trin's crystal structures flashed rapidly, indicating what Daniel guessed was agitation. Captain Hayes, you described these capabilities as normal? Yes, Daniel confirmed, growing more confused by the reactions. The Sentinel is actually a medium-class exploration ship. We have civilian research vessels with heavier armor for working in hazardous environments, and our military warships are significantly more powerful. High Priestess Yuna's crystalline form chimed softly, a sound that translated to words of disbelief. This cannot be. Commander Vexthor, show them the analysis. Vexthor activated a holographic display in the center of the table. Daniel watched as technical readouts of the Sentinel appeared, highlighting various systems with alarming red indicators. The commander's voice was steady but carried an undercurrent of tension. Captain, your ship's armor is constructed from materials we have only theorized about. The density and molecular structure should be impossible to manufacture with any known technology. Your kinetic weapons fire projectiles at velocities that would require power generation systems larger than most of our starships, and your antimatter warheads each contain enough destructive potential to sterilize a planet's surface. Daniel looked at the display, then at Greg and Amy. Greg shrugged slightly, while Amy's expression remained carefully neutral. Looking back at the assembled aliens, Daniel realized they were all waiting for his response with barely contained anxiety. Daniel studied the holographic display showing the technical analysis of the Sentinel, trying to understand why specifications he considered routine were causing such alarm among the alien delegates. He looked around the table at the various species, each watching him with expressions that ranged from fear to fascination. Amy caught his eye and gave a subtle nod, encouraging him to speak honestly. I think there may be a fundamental misunderstanding here, Daniel began, choosing his words carefully. Everything you're describing as extraordinary technology is standard equipment for Earth vessels. We've been using these systems for decades. Can someone explain what's so unusual about them? Commander Zach of the Rothian Defense League, the bear-like alien, made a growling sound that the translator rendered as frustrated confusion. Captain Hayes, perhaps it would help if we explained how most galactic civilizations developed their technology. When our species achieved spaceflight, we did so through biological manipulation of natural energy fields. Our weapons evolved from our ability to generate electromagnetic pulses through specialized organs. High Priestess Yuna's crystalline form chimed in agreement. My people, the crystalline chorus, achieved space travel through harmonic resonance manipulation. We shaped reality itself through synchronized thought patterns. Our defensive capabilities come from these same principles. Minister Pravix added his perspective, his silver skin reflecting the soft lighting of the conference room. The Centauri Coalition developed psychic abilities that allowed us to create force fields and project energy. Most species in this region of space followed similar paths. We built our technology around natural abilities or energy manipulation. Ambassador Trin's jellyfish-like body pulsed with light as it spoke. Physical kinetic weapons were abandoned by most civilizations thousands of years ago. They were considered primitive and inefficient. Why throw metal when you can project pure energy? Why build thick armor when you can generate shields? Understanding began to dawn on Daniel, and he felt a mix of amusement and concern. So you're saying most species develop technology based on their natural biological abilities? Energy fields, psychic powers, things like that? Precisely, Vexthor confirmed. It is the natural progression of technological advancement. Or so we believed until we scanned your vessel. Greg leaned forward, unable to contain himself any longer. Well, humans don't have any of that. No psychic powers, no natural energy manipulation, nothing. We're just regular biological beings who figured out how physics and chemistry work. When we wanted to fly, we built rockets. When we needed weapons, we made guns. When we went to space, we just scaled everything up." The alien delegates exchanged glances, and Daniel could sense their growing amazement. Amy spoke up, her tactical mind seeing the strategic implications. "Our entire technological development was based on overcoming our limitations through engineering and applied science. We couldn't manipulate energy fields, so we learned to generate massive amounts of power through fusion reactors. We couldn't create shields with our minds, so we built armor that could withstand nuclear explosions." Lisa had accompanied them through a holographic link from the Sentinel, and her image appeared beside Daniel. "If I may add to this discussion, I believe I understand the discrepancy. Human weapons development followed a completely different path because we had no alternative. Our railguns work by using electromagnetic acceleration to launch projectiles at extreme velocities. The concept is simple physics, but the execution requires enormous power generation and precise engineering." "Simple physics?" Commander Vexthor repeated, his scales rippling with what Daniel interpreted as incredulity. "Captain Hayes, your railguns fire projectiles at 30% of light speed. The kinetic energy alone would penetrate any known defense in this sector. And you call this simple?" Daniel realized he needed to be completely honest about human capabilities. "Commander, I think you need to understand something important. The Sentinel is not a warship. It's an exploration vessel designed for long-range scientific missions. We have weapons for self-defense, but our primary mission is research and discovery. Not a warship," Minister Pravix repeated slowly. "Captain, I must ask directly. If this is not a warship, what would one of your actual military vessels be capable of?" Greg whistled softly, and Daniel shot him a warning glance before answering. "Our Dreadnought-class warships are about 3 times the size of the Sentinel. They carry enough firepower to engage multiple capital ships simultaneously. We have carrier vessels that launch squadrons of fighters, each armed with antimatter missiles, and our defense stations around major colonies have weapons that can target threats from several light minutes away." The conference room fell completely silent. Daniel watched as the implications of his words sank in among the delegates. Ambassador Trin's crystalline structures stopped pulsing entirely. High Priestess Yuna's chiming ceased. Commander Zaxfer stood on end, making him look twice as large. Finally, Vexthor spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Captain Hayes, how many of these warships does Earth possess?" Daniel considered lying or deflecting, but he realized that honesty was the only path forward. The Earth Defense Force maintains approximately 200 Dreadnought-class vessels, 500 cruisers like the Sentinel, and over 1,000 smaller patrol and support ships. We also have defense installations around every major colony and trading route," Amy added. "And that's just Earth's military. Our colony worlds maintain their own defense forces, and several private corporations operate security fleets." Commander Pravix stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "This is impossible. How has your species remained unknown to us? With such military power, you should have conquered half the galaxy by now." Daniel stood as well, meeting the alien's gaze steadily. "Because that's not who we are. Yes, humans developed powerful weapons. We had to. Because our own history was filled with conflict and war. We learned the hard way that strength without wisdom leads to destruction. When we finally achieved unity and reached for the stars, we did so with the hope of finding new friends, not new enemies." The tension in the room shifted slightly. High Priestess Yuna's crystalline form began chiming again, the sound softer and more contemplative. "Captain Hayes speaks with sincerity. I can sense no deception in his words. Perhaps we have found not a threat, but an opportunity." Vexthor slowly sat back down, and the other delegates followed his lead. "Captain, forgive our reactions. You must understand that the Zaltharian Empire has been the dominant military power in this sector for generations. We have grown accustomed to being the strongest force in any conflict. To suddenly discover a species that could potentially defeat our entire fleet with a handful of ships is profoundly unsettling." "I understand your concern," Daniel replied, sitting as well. "But let me be clear about something. Earth didn't send the Sentinel to your territory to threaten anyone. We're here to explore, to learn, and hopefully to make friends. Yes, we have powerful weapons, but we'd much rather use our technology to build than to destroy." Ambassador Trin's body pulsed with what Daniel was learning to recognize as approval. "Then perhaps we can discuss more pleasant matters. The Nexian Collective would be very interested in establishing trade relations with Earth. Your engineering capabilities alone would be invaluable for civilian applications. The conversation gradually shifted from fear and suspicion to curiosity and opportunity. Each species began discussing potential areas of cooperation with humanity. The crystalline chorus offered their advanced medical technology in exchange for human engineering expertise. The Rothian Defense League proposed joint military exercises to share tactical knowledge. The Centauri Coalition suggested cultural exchanges and educational programs. As the meeting continued, Daniel felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. What had started as a tense first contact situation was transforming into the beginning of something positive. Amy made notes on potential security arrangements, while Greg discussed engineering specifications with interested delegates. But Vexthor remained quiet, observing the proceedings with a thoughtful expression. When there was a pause in the discussions, he spoke up. Captain Hayes, there is one more matter we must address. Not all civilizations in this region of space will react to news of humanity as peacefully as those gathered here today. The Kraith Dominion in particular rules through military might and intimidation. When they learn of your capabilities, they may see you as a challenge to their authority. Daniel nodded seriously. We've dealt with aggressive species before. Our policy is always to seek diplomatic solutions first, but we're prepared to defend ourselves if necessary. News of humanity's military capabilities spread through the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within 2 weeks of the meeting at Haven's Rest, every major civilization within 100 light-years had received detailed reports about the human warship and its impossible technology. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. On the Zaltharian homeworld, the High Command gathered an emergency session. For the first time in living memory, the military leaders who had conquered dozens of star systems found themselves discussing defensive strategies rather than expansion plans. The scan data from the Sentinel had been analyzed by their best scientists, and the conclusions were undeniable. In a direct military confrontation, humanity could potentially defeat the entire Zaltharian fleet. Commander Vexthor stood before the High Command Council, presenting his recommendations. Honored leaders, I have spent considerable time with Captain Hayes and his crew. I believe humanity represents not a threat to be eliminated, but an opportunity to be embraced. They possess technology we can learn from, and more importantly, they appeared genuinely interested in peaceful cooperation. The eldest council member, a scarred veteran named Cathax, leaned forward on his throne. You ask us to befriend a species that could destroy us? Have you grown soft, Commander? With respect, honored Cathax, I ask us to be practical, Vexthor replied calmly. We cannot defeat them militarily. Our best option is to ensure they have no reason to view us as enemies. I recommend we offer a comprehensive non-aggression pact, along with trade agreements and territorial concessions. The council debated for hours, but eventually agreed to Vexthor's proposal. They had not survived for generations by making foolish military decisions, and starting a war with humanity would be exactly that. Across the galaxy, other civilizations made their own calculations. The Nexian Collective immediately dispatched trade envoys to Earth, offering exclusive contracts for human engineering services. They understood that whoever secured humanity's friendship first would gain a massive economic advantage. Their merchant fleets began preparing goods and resources that might interest the newcomers. The crystalline chorus, a peaceful species that had long suffered raids from aggressive neighbors, sent desperate pleas for a defensive alliance. Their high priestess personally composed a message to Earth's government, offering everything from medical technology to artistic treasures in exchange for human protection. For the first time in centuries, they felt hope that their people might live without fear, but not everyone reacted with diplomacy. The Kraith Dominion, a militaristic empire built on conquest and intimidation, viewed humanity's appearance as an insult to their authority. In their throne world's war chamber, Supreme Commander Hask gathered his generals to discuss this new challenge. These humans think they can intimidate us with their primitive weapons? Hask snarled, his reptilian features twisted with rage. We have conquered 30 systems. We have crushed every species that dared oppose us. We will not cower before some unknown aliens who got lucky with their technology. His chief military advisor, a cautious officer named Vren, tried to interject. Supreme Commander, the scan data suggests caution. Their weapon systems are unlike anything we have encountered. Scan data can be falsified, Hask snapped. I believe this is propaganda designed to avoid conflict. These humans are cowards hiding behind exaggerated claims. We will test them, and when they break, the galaxy will remember that the Kraith Dominion bows to no one. Meanwhile, on Earth, the United Earth government struggled to process the sudden attention from multiple alien civilizations. In a secure conference room beneath the capital city, Admiral Kate Sullivan sat with President Henry Clark and his cabinet, reviewing the flood of diplomatic communications. Kate was a stern woman in her late 50s, with iron-gray hair and sharp blue eyes that had seen 3 decades of military service. She had commanded fleet operations during humanity's expansion into space and understood both the opportunities and dangers of their current situation. Mr. President, we're receiving an average of 15 new diplomatic requests per day, Kate reported, gesturing to the holographic display showing various alien messages. The Zaltharians want a non-aggression treaty. The Nexians want trade agreements. The crystalline chorus is begging for military protection, and at least 6 other species are trying to open formal relations. President Clark was a thoughtful man in his 60s, whose diplomatic career had prepared him for complex negotiations, but not quite for this. Admiral, what's your assessment of the military situation? Sir, we've accidentally become the most feared military power in known space, Kate said bluntly. Our technological development followed a completely different path from theirs. What we consider standard equipment is beyond their wildest imagination. The good news is that most species are reacting with diplomacy rather than hostility. The bad news is that we're now a target for any aggressive civilization that wants to prove themselves. Secretary of State Helen Martinez leaned forward, her dark eyes concerned. There's another issue. Some of our own people want to take advantage of this situation. Several corporate lobbies are pushing for aggressive expansion into alien territory. Some military hardliners want to establish dominance before anyone can organize against us. We're getting pressure from multiple sides. President Clark rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of the decision before him. The question is, what kind of power do we want to be? We have the strength to take whatever we want. But is that who we are? Kate's expression softened slightly. Sir, I've spent my entire life in the military. I've seen what happens when strength is used without wisdom. Captain Hayes made the right call when he chose diplomacy over intimidation. I recommend we follow his example on a larger scale. Agreed, President Clark said firmly. Draft a formal statement to all alien civilizations. Earth seeks peaceful cooperation and mutual benefit. We will defend ourselves if attacked, but we will not use our military advantage to bully or conquer. Helen, work with the diplomatic corps to establish formal channels with every species that's reached out to us. Kate, I want you to coordinate with Captain Hayes. He's our best example of how humans should represent themselves in space. Back on the USS Sentinel, Daniel found himself in an unexpected position. Earth's government had ordered him to remain in this sector of space as humanity's unofficial ambassador, while formal diplomatic structures were established. His exploration mission had transformed into something far more complex and politically sensitive. Amy entered the captain's quarters, where Daniel was reviewing the latest dispatches from Earth. Sir, we've received 73 new communication requests in the last 6 hours. Everyone wants to meet with us, establish relations, or ask for favors. The crystalline chorus alone has sent 15 messages. Daniel sighed and gestured for her to sit. I became a spaceship captain because I wanted to explore the unknown and discover new worlds. Instead, I'm drowning in diplomatic paperwork. Amy smiled sympathetically. Sir, you did handle the first contact situation well. It makes sense that Earth wants you to continue. I suppose, Daniel admitted. But every decision I make now affects how these aliens view all of humanity. That's a lot of pressure. Greg's voice suddenly came over the intercom, urgent and tense. Captain, to the bridge immediately. We have a situation. Daniel and Amy rushed to the bridge, where they found Greg and Lisa already at their stations, both looking concerned. On the main view screen, a distress signal was playing. It showed a human colony ship, one of the massive civilian vessels designed to transport thousands of settlers to new worlds. The message was broken and filled with static, but the essential information came through clearly. This is the colony ship New Horizon. We are under attack by unknown hostile vessels. They ignore all communication attempts. We have 10,000 civilians aboard, including families and children. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. Amy's fingers flew across her tactical console, pulling up the location data. Sir, They're 3 light hours from our position. I'm reading 20 hostile contacts surrounding the colony ship. Configuration matches the Kraith Dominion vessels from our database. Lisa looked up from her science station, her face pale. Captain, colony ships are civilian vessels. They have basic defensive shields but no weapons. Against 20 military ships, they won't last long. Daniel felt his blood run cold. This was the test he had hoped would never come. The Kraith were attacking a defenseless civilian ship to test humanity's resolve, to see if the scan data was accurate or just propaganda. And the USS Sentinel was the only human warship in range to respond. Amy, tactical analysis. Can we reach them in time? Amy's expression was grim as she reviewed the data. Yes, sir, but we'll arrive with the New Horizon already under heavy fire. And we'll be outnumbered 20-1. Our odds of victory are less than 15%. Greg's voice was steady but serious. Captain, our antimatter reserves are at 60% after 3 months away from resupply. If we commit to a major engagement, we'll be running on fumes afterward. Daniel looked at the faces of his crew, seeing the same conflict he felt reflected in their eyes. They were 1 ship against 20. The smart. Daniel stood on the bridge of the USS Sentinel, staring at the distress signal from the colony ship New Horizon. Every second of hesitation meant more civilians in danger. Every calculation pointed to tactical suicide. But some decisions went beyond tactics and numbers. Set course for the New Horizon, maximum speed, Daniel ordered, his voice calm and certain. Battle stations. All hands prepare for combat. Amy didn't question the order, though her eyes showed concern. Aye, sir. Estimated arrival time, 43 minutes. All weapon systems online. Shields at maximum. Greg's voice came through from engineering, carrying his usual straightforward tone. Sir, I'll squeeze every bit of power I can from these engines. But once we're in the fight, we'll burn through our reserves fast. Understood, Greg. Do what you can. Daniel turned to Lisa at the science station. I need you to analyze everything we know about Kraith technology. Find me a weakness we can exploit. Lisa's fingers danced across her console, pulling up all available data on Kraith vessels from the limited encounters other species had documented. Their ships rely heavily on plasma-based weapons and electromagnetic shields. The shields are designed to deflect energy weapons, but they've never faced kinetic weapons at the velocities our railguns produce. That's something, Amy noted, updating her tactical plan. But 20 against 1 is still terrible odds. We'll need to make every shot count. The Sentinel accelerated to maximum speed, racing through space toward the embattled colony ship. On the bridge, the crew worked in focused silence, each preparing for the battle ahead. Daniel thought about the civilians on the New Horizon. Families who had left Earth dreaming of new homes among the stars, now facing extinction because they were caught in a power play. Captain, receiving a priority communication from Commander Vexthor, the communications officer announced. Daniel accepted the call, and the Zaltharian commander's face appeared on screen. Captain Hayes, we have detected the Kraith attack on your colony ship. I must inform you that reinforcement from Earth cannot arrive in time. The Kraith have chosen their target carefully. I'm aware of the situation, Commander, Daniel replied. We're en route to provide assistance. Vexthor's expression showed genuine concern. Captain, you cannot defeat 20 Kraith warships alone. This is a calculated test of human resolve. They expect you to retreat and call for help, proving that your technology is propaganda and your reputation false. Then they're going to be disappointed, Daniel said simply. There was a pause before Vexthor spoke again, and his voice carried an emotion Daniel hadn't heard before. Respect. Captain, I am dispatching 3 Zaltharian vessels to your position. It is not much, but we cannot stand by and watch civilians die. Before Daniel could respond, more communications flooded in. Ambassador Trin of the Nexian Collective appeared. Captain Hayes, 4 of our escort ships are moving to assist you. We are not warriors, but we will not abandon your people. High Priestess Yuna's crystalline form materialized in another transmission. 2 of our vessels are en route. May the harmony of the universe protect you all. One by one, representatives from species that had met humanity only weeks ago pledged ships to help defend the New Horizon. They were outmatched and everyone knew it, but they came anyway. Daniel felt a surge of emotion that he quickly pushed down. There would be time for sentiment later if they survived. Amy, update tactical display with allied ships, Daniel ordered. The tactical screen updated, showing not just the Sentinel, but a small fleet of ships from different species converging on the new horizon. The odds had improved, but they were still facing a numerically superior enemy. The Sentinel dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the combat zone. The main view screen showed the scene in stark clarity. The new horizon, a massive cylinder 3 kilometers long, was surrounded by sleek Kraith attack cruisers. The colony ship's shields flickered under sustained plasma bombardment, and sections of its hull showed damage. Supreme Commander Hask aboard his flagship watched the approaching ships with satisfaction. "Look, the prey comes to defend the weak. This will be a glorious victory for the Kraith. All ships, prepare to destroy the human vessel." But Vren, his military advisor, studied the sensor readings with growing alarm. "Supreme Commander, the human ship's energy signatures match the scan data. This may not be the easy victory you expect." "Silence," Hask snapped. "Open fire on my command." On the Sentinel's bridge, Amy tracked the Kraith formation. "Sir, they're spreading out to surround us. Classic encirclement tactics. They'll try to overwhelm our defenses with crossfire." "Then we don't give them the chance," Daniel said. "Amy, fire solution on their command ship. Let's show them what Earth's engineering can do." "Weapons free." The Sentinel's railgun spoke first, accelerating projectiles to 30% of light speed in a fraction of a second. The kinetic rounds hit the Kraith flagship's shields, and instead of being deflected, they punched straight through. The shields had been designed to stop energy weapons, not solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The projectiles tore through the flagship's hull, causing massive internal damage. Supreme Commander Hask stared in disbelief as his ship's systems went critical. "This is impossible!" "Return fire! Destroy them!" The Kraith fleet unleashed a barrage of plasma weapons, filling space with deadly energy. The Sentinel's shields held, but barely. Damage reports started flooding in as several plasma bolts found their mark. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Amy reported, her voice steady despite the ship shaking from impacts. "Shields down to 70%. Targeting next hostile." Greg's voice came through from engineering, background alarms audible. "Captain, we took a hit near the main reactor. I'm rerouting power, but we're losing efficiency. I can give you weapons or shields at full power, not both." Daniel made the tactical decision instantly. "Weapons. We end this fast or not at all."
"Amy, fire at will."
"Target their weapon systems and engines. I want them disabled, not destroyed." The battle became a deadly dance of technology and tactics. The Sentinel's railguns carved through Kraith vessels with devastating precision, while antimatter missiles eliminated entire squadrons. But the sheer number of enemies began to tell. The Sentinel's armor held against most attacks, but damage was accumulating. Then the Allied ships arrived. Zaltharian vessels with their advanced plasma weapons joined the fight, their commanders coordinating with Amy's tactical plan. Nexian ships, built for commerce but armed for protection, provided supporting fire. The crystalline chorus vessels used their harmonic abilities to disrupt Kraith targeting systems. What the Kraith had expected to be an easy demonstration of power became a desperate struggle for survival. They had never faced an enemy that combined human kinetic weapons, Zaltharian plasma technology, and the varied capabilities of multiple species working together. Aboard the New Horizon, 10,000 civilians watched through viewports and monitors as the battle raged around them. Parents held their children close, hoping that the ships fighting to protect them would prevail. When a Kraith cruiser broke through the defensive line and aimed directly at the colony ship, a collective cry of fear rose from the passengers, but the Sentinel interposed itself between the enemy and the civilians, taking the full force of the Kraith attack. The neutronium armor held, but the ship shuddered under the impact. "Shields offline," Amy reported. "Armor integrity at 40%. "We can't take many more hits like that." Daniel gripped his command chair. "Greg, I need shields back now." "Working on it, Captain." "Give me 60 seconds. They didn't have 60 seconds. 3 more Kraith ships moved to flank the Sentinel, preparing to finish the wounded vessel. Daniel watched them approach, calculating their remaining options when something unexpected happened. The Kraith ships suddenly broke formation, their engines flaring as they attempted to retreat. On his tactical display, Daniel saw why. A massive energy signature had just appeared at the edge of the system, rapidly approaching. It was another human ship, but this one was 3 times the size of the Sentinel. "Sir, I'm reading an Earth Defense Force dreadnought entering the combat zone," Amy announced, relief evident in her voice. It's the Enterprise, Captain Nicole Bennett commanding. They must have been on patrol in a nearby sector. The Enterprise lived up to its classification. Where the Sentinel had struggled against 20 ships, the Dreadnought decimated the remaining Kraith forces with ruthless efficiency. Its weapon systems, designed for large-scale fleet engagements, made short work of the enemy cruisers. Within minutes, the Kraith force was either destroyed or fleeing in disarray. Supreme Commander Hask abandoned his crippled flagship in an escape pod, his dreams of glory shattered along with his fleet. As he watched human weapons tear through his ships like paper, he realized the terrible truth. The scan data hadn't been propaganda. If anything, it had understated human capabilities. On the Sentinel's bridge, Daniel accepted a communication from Captain Bennett aboard the Enterprise. She was a severe-looking woman with gray hair and the bearing of someone who had commanded warships for decades. Captain Hayes, your ship took significant damage protecting those civilians. Well done. We'll escort the New Horizon to its destination and provide repair assistance.